Back in November of 2021, I upgraded from my Canon 60 Mark II, my trusty workhorse camera for over 3 years, to a Canon R6. Now I've been using the R6 for pretty much all photo and video projects for the past 4 months, and today I want to go over what I like about the camera, what I maybe don't like so much, just my overall thoughts. Just a reminder that if you're interested in this camera or any of my gear that I use, you can check the links in the description. All of my gear is listed there. The first thing I want to cover is switching from a DSLR to mirrorless. Making that switch is something that a lot of photographers and videographers have been doing the past few years. Personally, I've never used a mirrorless camera before this one, and I was very comfortable with the form factor of my 60 Mark II. You know, I knew where all the buttons were, I could press anything, change settings without looking at my camera. So there were some growing pains when switching to a new body, because obviously the buttons are in different places, there's different layouts and things, but that's not an issue with the R6, it's more so just a specific me thing, and with time that'll go away. But the first big noticeable difference between the R6 and my 60 Mark II is battery life. Mirrorless cameras, at least the R6, still has way worse battery life than a DSLR. Now this is for good reason, because the R6 can record 4K 10-bit log footage internally. It can also take 20 photos per second with the electronic shutter, which is just insane. But when you demand all that stuff in such a small form factor, yeah, you're gonna eat up the battery life. I've been using the older style LP-E6N batteries. They're the ones that I got for my 60 Mark II. And there has been a noticeable change in battery life, because I go through 2 to 3 batteries on this camera in the time that I would normally be going through 1 on the 60 Mark II. Now Canon does have the LP-E6NH, I think it's called, and they included one with the R6. It's the same form factor battery, but it just has a bigger capacity. And I've noticed an improvement when using that battery over the older batteries, but it still goes through it pretty quickly. Because of this, I've been strongly considering getting a battery grip for the R6, because it holds 2 LP-E6 batteries instead of just 1, which is obviously going to double the battery life. But the battery grip is an additional $500 Canadian, and it kind of ruins any perks of the small form factor of the R6. On the more positive side, a change with the R6 over the 60 Mark II that I've noticed is there's so many more customizable buttons. Now I am missing out on the top display on the camera, the little digital display that shows you the camera settings, but honestly I don't find I ever really used that, so it's not really a huge loss for me. And without it, you have some extra real estate for some more customizable buttons. One thing that's nice is this camera has separate dials for shutter speed, ISO, and aperture, so you can change them all individually with their own dedicated dials, which I could not do on my old camera. The minor downside to having all these extra buttons on a smaller form factor camera is that it feels a little cramped sometimes. Sometimes I hit 2 buttons at once, or I accidentally hit the wrong button because they're kind of close to each other. But again, that's just kind of part of the growing pains and something that I'll get used to the more I use the camera. Alright, now let's talk about video features. The biggest change for me when getting the R6 was the video features and just video quality overall. It's an insane improvement. My old camera maxed out at 1080p 60 FPS, and I could not shoot log footage. Now with the R6, I can do up to 4K 60 FPS or 1080p 120 FPS for slow motion, all in 10-bit C log 3. And as a lot of you guys know, I'm constantly posting on TikTok every single day, and I use this camera to record those videos now. So I've been shooting all of my TikToks in log so that I can play around with learning how to color grade log properly. And man, the colors I can pull from this footage are so much nicer than what I could before, or even if I shoot on this camera without log. I noticed such a huge difference. For those who are curious, this is what the raw log footage looks like, then with a conversion let to Rec 709, and then the color grade that I put on top, which is pretty subtle. Now I have experienced some overheating issues with the R6, but it hasn't been too major. I only start to get the overheating warning after I've been recording 4K video for about 45 minutes or longer, and that's recording straight through, because sometimes I'll record some long 15-20 minute videos on here, and in order to get 15 minutes of usable footage, it usually takes me about an hour of raw recording time. So although the overheating is annoying, it doesn't come up too often, and if I want to, I can fix that by getting an external recorder, which is something I might do down the line, especially as I do more professional video work. Getting a recorder / monitor combo to sit on top of the camera would take away a lot of the stress from the camera, and I'd still be able to get some great footage out of it. So that's a definite way to solve the overheating issues. Speaking of shooting professionally, I haven't done nearly as much professional video work over the years as I have photo, because I've never had a camera that was capable of the video features that I thought would sort of warrant a professional look. I never felt very confident delivering video work when it was shot on my 60 Mark II, because it was always a little soft and it wasn't really the caliber that I wanted to deliver out of a professional video service. But now that I know I can shoot high quality professional grade footage with this camera, I'm planning on doing a lot more professional video work. So I'm really excited for that. All right, let's talk about the photo features. Now I did not upgrade to the R6 for the improved photo quality, because there isn't really a noticeable improvement. My 60 Mark II shot great photos, and if that was all I wanted to upgrade, I probably would have just gotten some nicer lenses for the 60 Mark II instead of getting a new camera body, because there's nothing really wrong with the way the 60 Mark II body was taking photos. If anything, just some sharper lenses would really improve the quality. Now the R6, technically speaking, takes worse photos. My 60 Mark II has a 26 megapixel sensor and the R6 has a 20 megapixel sensor. But honestly, for me, this is a great real world example of how megapixels don't really matter that much. I mean, they do to a point, but once you get past like 20 megapixels, you're not noticing a huge difference unless you're doing massive prints. Plus, when I upgraded to the R6, I got much sharper glass for it, which I think makes a much more noticeable improvement over the 60 Mark II, even though the photos are technically a lower resolution. Plus, the R6 has much better usability features when it comes to photos because it can take photos at a much faster rate, and the autofocus is way better, and the intelligent autofocus is awesome. All right, now I just want to cover the lenses that I got. So as you may know, the R6, along with all of Canon's full frame mirrorless cameras, are not compatible with the DSLR EF lens mount. This means all of Canon's old lenses will not fit on this camera unless I buy an adapter. So without an adapter, all my old EF lenses are useless on this camera. Now I could have bought an adapter, but the EF lenses that I have are a lot older, I bought them used, and they're not really the best quality lenses out there. So to spend extra money on an adapter just to be able to use those lenses on this camera probably would not be worth it for me. Especially since I'm getting this nice body, I wanted to be able to put nice glass on it too. So instead of buying an adapter, I bought 2 RF lenses. Now these 2 lenses have to be able to cover all my ranges of work because they are the only 2 lenses I have that fit on this camera right now. So I got 2 zoom lenses. The first one is the one you're seeing right now, which is the RF 24-70 f2.8 lens. This is a really great all-around lens. The 24 is wide enough for stuff like this, for landscape photos, and the 70 is pretty zoomed in. I can shoot portraits with that. I can shoot events and weddings, that kind of stuff. It's a lens that's good at everything, but not great at any one thing. Then the other lens I bought was the RF 70-200 f2.8 lens. Now this lens is a beast. This is my new favorite lens by far. When you're that zoomed in, the f2.8 creates such nice background compression and the background blur. It's amazing. It's a nice lens for portraits, for product stuff, for wildlife, for telephoto landscapes, and it's so sharp. The image stabilization is great. Overall, by far the best lens I own. Also the most expensive lens I own, but... So yeah, these are the only 2 lenses I have right now, because as I said, my old EF lenses, which I have yet to sell, don't actually fit on this camera. But yeah, I decided that if I was only gonna have 2 lenses, these 2 are the best ones to get because they covered most of the range of what I need. Now, I don't have any primes that have the really low aperture, and I don't have anything that shoots wider than 24mm, which are 2 limitations that I will get over in the future as I progress and I continue to work and make money from my photography. I'll be able to buy some more specialty lenses, but until that happens, these 2 lenses are more than enough to hold me over and get great results for whatever I need to do. A couple lenses that I'd like to buy would be the 100mm macro lens for product photography, for really close-up B-roll shots. I would also really like the 15-35 f2.8 lens because having a high-quality wide-angle lens is a really nice addition. For landscapes, interior shots, that's all I can think of off the top of my head. And the other lens is the RF 85mm f2.8 lens, which would be just absolutely beautiful for portraits. But that's far down the line. For now, I'm very happy with the lenses I have. But that about wraps up this video. Overall, I really like this camera. No buyer's remorse. It's a huge improvement. And I'm going to be using this for pretty much everything for the foreseeable future. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Consider subscribing if you want to see more content. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok in the description. You'll also find the links to all of my gear in the description if you want to check out this camera, my lenses, or anything else. And that's all. I'll see you in the next one.